In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a background using GIMP, add text to that background, add a border to your background, and also add a border to your text, and then add a drop shadow to your text. So you'll want to open GIMP. If you don't see GIMP on your desktop, then you'll want to search for GIMP, and you should have GIMP 2.10. It should take a moment for GIMP to open the first time. After that, it should open pretty quickly. So you just need to wait for it to open. And the first thing you need to do is go to File and then click New. And we want our width to be 640 and we want our height to be 400. Click OK. So this will be a nice space for us to be working in. Now, something that we need to know about GIMP is that it has grouped or nested tools. So you can see over here with this tool, if I turn on my magnifier so you can see a little bit easier, they have little arrows underneath them. And when you highlight them or select them, or if you just hover over them, hovering over them is probably the best option, it'll tell you the different tools. So this also has the fuzzy tool. So it's the select by color tool, and it also has the fuzzy select tool. So right now we need to look at our bucket tool, and we need to change our bucket tool to gradient. And so we're going to create a gradient across our background. Right now it's white. If it came in any other color, that's okay, because we're going to change it. Over here, we have our palettes. We have our foreground color, which is the color that's going to be in the front. And we have our background color, which is the color that is in the back. And so we can click on those, and we have a bunch of options to change them. So you'll change them to 2 different colors. And if you want to use white or black, that's fine. So you pick your 2 colors. And then because we have gradient, we're just going to hold down our mouse once. You can see that my mouse has changed to be the gradient. And I'm going to drag a line, okay? And so I can move the line, and right now I have a very hard blue line and a very hard red line. And I can see over here that that is a hard edge. So I have our gradient tools over here. We also have our gradient tools also right over here. But we want to stick with the tool options right here. So when I look at my gradients, I can look at my different options. I can have more of like an HSV, so like a clockwise, it shows the rainbow of the colors in between my first color and my last color. I can also change that to just the foreground, so FG and background. And so you can see it goes from the blue to the red, and I can change those by just changing the line. Okay, and so right now this is linear. I can tell that it's linear because when I click on shape, okay, it says bilinear. So it actually is supposed to have 2 lines here. So if I stretch these, or if I click in the middle, okay, you can see I have a line of red and a line of blue. I can change that shape to just be 1 line. I can change it to be a cone. And so you can change how that looks, how it spreads. And I can also do a spiral, and I can make it a really tight spiral or a really spread out spiral. So you're going to create your background. And so once you have your background, then you're going to move on to your text. So this is the background that I want. And now I'm going to switch to my text tool. And I'm going to draw a text box about this big. And I'm going to make sure that my font is between 145 and 160, because everybody's first name is different. So it just kind of depends. I have a short first name. So when I type 148, that's a pretty big font. But if I had a much longer name, okay, then 160 would also work. Or if I want to make it a little bit bigger than that, I can do that, because if my name is much longer, then maybe 145 is just the right size of font. Now, I don't want my font color to be the same as my background, so I can click here and I can change that to a white or a black or some other color that stands out. If this spot right here is not working, like the small editor, you can hit the X and it will change to whatever you did over here. If you want to change your font style, you can't do that up here. You can come over here to the 2 A's and you can change the font. Okay, and if that is not changing, then you'll want to hit the little X here, and that will fix that. So you definitely want to pick a font that you like, and so we can see the way the font's going to look. And we don't want a symbol, so we want to make sure we can read it. So find a font that's relatively thick. If you pick a really thin font, it's going to be kind of difficult to add the drop shadow, which we're going to do here in a few minutes. So you find your font, and then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put this font like in the center of our page. So we're going to find our move tool. Okay, it looks just like this. We'll click on our move tool. We'll click on one of the letters, and we will move this to be about the center of our page. If you accidentally grab the background, just do Control and Z as in zebra to undo, and you just need to do that once, and that will put whatever you just messed up, put it back to the way you had it. So in order to do this next part, we need to have a new layer. And so you need to find your layers box. Okay, and so sometimes it's over here in the top, sometimes it's down here in the bottom. And so you just need to hover over these different boxes. Like this is my undo history, so I can see where we started, and then I can go all the way back to where I just was. Okay, and so then I want to move that back. So I want to find the layers tab, and then we're going to add a new layer. So right here is a little create new layer button, and we're going to call this text background. And because I've already done this before, that's why my text is already there, but you need to change this to text background. Don't change any other options, and then just click OK. And then we're going to grab our text background, and we're going to put it in between our text layer, which has got our name on it. We've got our text background, and then we have our regular background. And so we have these different things that are in this order, okay? And they all have a visible or invisible option. So if I turn this off, then I can't see it anymore. It's still there, okay? But it's like if I just wanted to look at my background. So we're going to go to our text layer, and we're going to right-click on our text layer, and we're going to go down here to Alpha to Selection. And so once you do Alpha to Selection, I'm going to hold down my Control key, and I'm going to use my scroll bar on my mouse, and I'm going to zoom in. And this is what we call running ants. It creates a selection around all of your letters, and they just look like they're moving. So they look like little ants like marching in a line. So we have selected using Alpha to Selection, and now we're going to grow this selection. So we're going to come up here to Select, and we're going to click Grow. Now you're going to want to grow from 2 pixels to 4 pixels, and that all depends on the font that you used. So if I only grow by 2 pixels, okay, it doesn't move it too far away. And this is where we're going to put our border around our text. So I'm going to do Control Z, and I'm going to take a look at growing by 4. And I'm going to click OK. So that's going to give me a much bigger and bolder layer. So this is why I did 4. So you want to grow by 2 or 4. You can always use the Control Z to figure out which one's best. And now that I have this selection, the reason we created the text background is because we want that to be where our background for our border is. So you must come over to your layers and click on text background. Now we're going to come back to our gradient tool. And because it's nested, we need to find our bucket tool underneath it. So I'm going to right click and select bucket fill. And then I'm going to change the bucket fill to a black because my font is white. Feel free to pick any other color. Just don't make it a color that's your background because then it won't be easy to see. So then I click OK. And I'm going to zoom in again. And I'm going to click in between the running ants and my letters. And so I'm going to zoom back out. Sometimes it doesn't fill the inside of your letters, so you may have to go to those individual places and it'll fill that for you. So now I have a border for my text. And now I'm going to come up to Select, and I'm going to say Select None. Now, the very last thing that we're going to do is we're going to create another selection, and we're going to add a drop shadow. So right now, if I zoom out, my words stand out, but I want them to look like they are like floating off the page, and a drop shadow will allow us to do that. So with my text background selected, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to go to Alpha to Selection. And so you can see I have my running ants, and this time they're on the outside, okay, because they're on the actual background or a text layer. And so then I'm going to come up to our filters, which is something we haven't clicked on before. So you'll find them next to Tools and Windows. So click Filters, and we're going to go to Light and Shadow. And there are 2 drop shadows. The one we're going to use is the Legacy drop shadow. And so this pulls up this window. And right now my drop shadow is going to be black. Well, my border is black, so that probably won't show up very well. So I'm going to pick a very bright color so for you to be able to see it. But you could do a white, you could do a completely different color. I would probably, if I was doing this, For not just this video, but for me to like print this out, I'd probably do a white so it kind of looks like it's glowing. But I'm going to use this green so that you can see it. And so I'm going to click OK. Right now, we've got our X axes and our Y axes. And so that's what these offsets mean. And right now they're offset by 4 pixels and the blur radius is 15. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK and see what that looks like. And so now I have this like green glow. And if I zoom out and do select none, then you can see that it kind of looks like my words are lifted up. And so if you don't like the way that that looks, you can do Control Z. And so I got my running ants again, Control Z one more time, and then go back to my filters, light and shadow, drop shadow legacy, and you can change the color, you can change the blur radius, you can make it smaller, you can make it bigger, you can offset it more or less. Okay, so let's see if I use that white color, click OK. And so then when I go to select and none, then you can see it kind of looks like it's raised off, okay? And so this is what you're doing. So this is your completed project. You have a background, you have a border around your text, you have a drop shadow. And your drop shadow has to be a color that we can see, or we're not going to be able to give you the points for it. So when you're done and you have this just the way that you want it, you're going to do File, and you're not going to do Save As. You're going to export this because we want it to be a picture. So we're going to export as. We're going to name this drop shadow number 1. And it ends in a PNG, which is a picture file. You can also change this to a JPEG, which will allow it to be just a little bit higher resolution. It's up to you if you want to do PNG or JPEG. If I click export, right now it's just going to be floating around on my computer. I need to go to my H drive. So this is what the drive that has my number on it. Okay, so my lunch number. And then I'm going to click create folder. And we're going to create a GIMP folder. And I'm going to name this my 3rd hour GIMP folder. You don't have to do that. It's up to you. But here's my GIMP folder. I click export. And then you want to make sure that your quality is 100% and then click export again. And so to be able to find this picture, I can go down here to my yellow folder, click on my number. So that's my H drive. There's the GIMP folder, but I named mine 3rd hour GIMP. Okay, so there's my 3rd hour GIMP folder. If you can't find it, you need to come see your teacher. But you should be able to see your drop shadow in here. If it looks like this is the wrong thing. This is a GIMP file. So if I open this, then it's going to open as if I'm editing. Okay, so if we look at this, this is something that I just started. Okay, so if you don't finish in a class period, then you'll do File and you'll just Save As. You'll need to make sure that you're in the correct folder. So there's my GIMP folder, and it looks like it didn't create my GIMP folder that I wanted. So you need to always make sure that it does that for you. So I'm going to click Create Folder, 3rd hour GIMP. Have it create the folder, hit enter. There we go. And it says 3rd hour GIMP. Okay, and now this is an XCF. So this is just going to be saving this as a file that I can continue to edit. So if I click Save, then I can open this back up, and that's something that I can use again because it has GIMP. But if I export it, so I do File and I do Export As, make sure I select the correct folder. So if I double click, it tells me it's going to save in this folder. You're either saving as a JPEG or a PNG, and then you click Export. Make sure your quality is 100%. Click Export again. And then when I check my folder, this is a picture file. This is a GIMP file. And you can see right here what type of file it is. So if I try to open this one, then it should load and show me what my picture looks like. And then I know that that's the one that I can put in my Google Doc to submit my assignment. And this program always takes a few minutes to load. So if you just wait for it patiently, it will load your picture to show you what it looks like. Okay, so the difference between these two things, this is a editable file, so I can open up this again and continue editing. This is an exported file. So if I want, or if I was not done with this, then I'm always going to do File, Save As, and I'm going to make sure it goes into my GIMP folder. If I'm done, I do File, Export As. And then when you're ready to turn in your assignment, you'll go to Canvas, And then you will get the Google Doc for Canvas and you will submit, put each file in the boxes and then submit the entire Google Doc. So in order to see what that looks like, I go to Canvas. Find our GIMP drop shadow under modules. Name with drop shadow. And then we've got our different videos we're watching, and this is the Google Doc you'll use. Make sure you rename it after you make a copy of it and you put it in your multimedia tech folder for this class. So make sure you rename it. It's your first and last name or your initials. While I wait for the internet to catch up, I can go ahead and click in this first box, have my folder open. I know that this is my first picture, so I can just drag it into the box, and then there's my first picture. And then you just need to make sure that you put this in your folder so you can easily find it so that you can turn it in. And then you'll put all 4 pictures. We should be able to see your background, your text border, and we should be able to tell what color your drop shadow is in order for you to get all of your points. If you have any questions, you can always ask us in class or you can email us. Have a wonderful rest of your day.